Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do a slightly unusual video and talk about the fact that I've been on BookTube for 9 years now. It certainly doesn't feel like 9 years, it feels more like maybe at most half of that time, but time flies when you're having fun, as I say, and I've certainly had some fun on BookTube over the years and met some great people. The 4 areas that I'm going to talk about in this video, which apply to obviously both the past and the current, and indeed might apply to the future, is precisely the motivation that I originally created my channel for and the motivation that keeps me going now, the process that I used to make videos and the process that it's developed into now, personal development essentially of what I've sort of taken from BookTube and how it's affected me on a more personal level, and also the trends and patterns of BookTube itself. So without further ado, I'll get started on talk about the first one, and I'll have to do a little bit of a history when I talk about motivation, because at the start of 2014, when my first video went live, for the record 31st January 2014 is my first video, I had never really been one for social media. My BookTube channel obviously wasn't created as BookTube then, was only created in the summer of 2013. I only created my Twitter in that same summer, and prior to that point there had been no presence of me online whatsoever. I did not use social media, there was no photos of me anywhere ever online, and I was the naive in the ways of social media and the way things work. And indeed that's why I originally motivated me to create this channel. I mean, I have mentioned this before. Basically, I'm just curious how YouTube works as a whole, and not just as a viewer, because I had been viewing videos for 6 months at that point, but how it worked from the other side, from obviously a creator's point of view. How do you create videos? How do you engage with people that are watching videos? And how do you maintain that engagement and try to build some kind of audience or loyal following, or however you want to phrase it? How do you achieve this? It's something that I had vague ideas about, but as you always hear about especially nowadays, you always hear about things where people say, "Oh, to get engagement on your channel, you do, A, B, and C in this particular order, and these are the things that really get your followers." And I'm like, it's interesting. It doesn't matter to me on a personal level, because if you didn't know, subscriber numbers, that kind of thing is irrelevant. But it's interesting to know how it works, even though the numbers aren't actually relevant to me. So that's what motivated me to start with, and that still motivates me to a degree. I mean, yes, I still like the idea of trying to engage with people watching my video now, like you now. But it's more the case of now it's just frankly something I do now. It's a hobby that I read books and I talk about them in front of a camera and then put them on YouTube. It's simply part of my everyday life now, that I try to make a video every week. Lately, yes, I haven't been quite successful in the last month or two, but usually it is fairly consistently every Sunday. I've been doing that for many years. Originally I did try to do more videos than once a week, by the way, if people remember that far back. 6 or 7 years ago I actually were doing more videos than that. My videos were a little bit more unpredictable with when I uploaded them as well. Now I feel as though once a week, trying to get one good video out works for me. And to be honest, I don't think I'll ever go more than one video a week, for the record, because frankly I don't have the ideas to make multiple videos a week, and I don't have the time to do so. I mean, it takes me a little bit of a time to make the videos, and that is what I'll talk about now, the process of when I was started and where I am now. So originally, when I first started making my videos, I would, and this has not changed, I would make my video notes on a cloud document, which I still do. However, at the start they would be far more detailed than they are now. I would go into massive amounts of detail. I would write full sentences, and the notes were frankly horrible by today's standards. I look back at some of my old notes, and for the record I've kept everything. So I really have got quite an history of video notes, 9 years worth, remarkably. and it just looked a mess by today's standards, because it was too much information on a notepad. For the record, when I write them on my cloud document, I will then write them out by hand on a notepad. This is the notes for this video, for example. I have gone through about, well, these pads last me about just over a year's worth of videos. So this is roughly, I think this might be my 8th notepad now, like this. I'll write them out by hand now, and as opposed to then, when I was trying to sort of make them, I did print some in the early days as well. That didn't really work out, so I wrote them by hand pretty quickly. But I'd write them out too much. Now I write bullet points. I will just write names of characters, names of books, authors, any dates, hopefully the published date of the book, that sort of thing. Basically, you know, important points to remember, because nowadays the process of making the notes on my PC is all I need. That process focuses my mind, makes me think, right, this is what I need to say. Once I've done their notes, I can do the video straight away off the top of my head. And indeed, the fact that I've got these notes here, so far in this video, for example, you won't see this because I will edit these bits out. I've looked at these notes briefly for about 1 second just to check where I was, and you know, where I was in the overall scheme of my theme of this video. Often nowadays I don't even look at my notes really, knowing that I have notes physically there, and if I need to look at them I can. Just gives me that motivation and the confidence to just speak. I mean, it's remarkable to me now that I can do a book review now. I mean, all of the Discworld reviews, for instance, that I did the last year and the year before, I reviewed every single Discworld book, and I did all of them. I wrote the notes out on my cloud save document, all different documents which I've still got obviously, and then I wrote them out by hand onto Notepad, which I've had every single review sitting here. And not once during any of those Discworld reviews did I actually look at my notes. I never needed to, because by the time I've made the notes, as I've said, all the important things are already in my memory. I mean, I've got a good memory, and for the record, that's one effect that BookTube has had on me over the years. I already had a good memory when I started BookTube. I feel as though nowadays my memory is even better than ever before. I now seem to be able to remember virtually everything that I actually want to remember. Sometimes I actually remember almost more than I want to, but that's another story. So the process has changed dramatically, and indeed the way I film videos has changed a little bit as well, because when I first filmed those videos I was obviously extraordinarily nervous. I mean, that first BookTube video I did, which I've never deleted, is still up online, I look like a deer in headlights. I mean, I look terrified. I'm looking at the camera all rigidly and I look terrified. I don't like looking at the videos, and for the record, I never look at videos. Once I upload them, I'll view a couple of seconds of them just to check that, you know, you can actually hear them and the visuals are not horribly got scrambled somehow in the upload. That's it. I'll never look at them again. So when people ask me complicated questions to do with reviews, for instance, sometimes I'm like, I have to literally try to record from memory what I've actually said in the video, because I don't really want to watch it and I still haven't. And before making those early videos, I would pace up and down this room with my notepad in hand, speaking out loud these notes to myself, basically because I was extremely nervous and I was almost too scared to film, barely. I did manage it, but just about. And I would pace up and down my room for a good hour and a half before those early videos. And I'd do this for probably the first 6 months. I would literally pace up and down this room from the window to where I am now, up and down for about an hour and a half before I could actually physically get up the courage, essentially, to film, because I was too nervous. Nowadays, that certainly changed, because nowadays it literally doesn't bother me in the slightest. I will walk in my room, get the camera set up and the light set up, grab my notepad, sit down and turn my camera on, think, right, I haven't made any stupid mistakes like gotten the wrong book off the shelf, which occasionally does still happen. As long as I've got the books off the shelf that I need, and I and I know that certain information that I've got to hand, like the published dates of books, that sort of thing, I just go to that, say, yeah, that's good, my notes are ready, I'm ready, and I just start recording, and I generally don't stop talking. So, this video will be pretty short, almost in one go, really, with only a few little breaks where I've, for instance, might have coughed, or something outside might have disturbed me, so I might glance away for a second. Those are the parts I edit out, and that's frankly the way I like to do videos nowadays. One little note though before I go on to the next section, which is personal development. I do predict that within a year of now, so by the time that I hit my 10-year milestone of BookTube, that I actually won't need physically notes written down on a notepad near me anymore. I will still be making them on a cloud document, because as I said, that document, obviously the process of that fixes everything in my mind and focuses me. But I don't think I'll actually physically need to write them down anymore, because I'm getting to a point now where I never look at my notes at all now, really. This video I've looked at my notes a few times because it's a little bit of an alternative subject, so I do need notes a little bit more for this. But reviews, for instance, nowadays, I don't need notes anymore. I can review a book almost off the top of my head now in one go, and amazingly with reviews, I feel as though I've got to a strange point where I never thought I'd be. Well, I can literally review a book in one go, and I don't even pause for breath, really, in almost from memory. So that's kind of remarkable. I think I'll be at a point within a year where that'll be the case with every video. I'll just be able to make any video I want pretty much straight away without needing to think about them too much, apart from that cloud document creation, which focuses me. And now I'll talk about the personal development, because I've already sort of alluded to this, one of which is of course my actual physical memory. My memory was already good, it's now way better than it was in other interesting ways. But I've also developed in confidence. Of course, I've been doing this 9 years, so obviously external non-BookTube things, which there are obviously a lot more of, that's affected me as well, and my confidence in general has grown, because with age comes confidence, in theory. With me that certainly worked, because when I first started BookTube, for instance, the thought that I would have travelled because of BookTube on my own, I would have laughed at you. I have now been to America twice by myself, where I actually go down to London, Heathrow, deal with Heathrow, which has got a reputation for being horrifically busy. I actually didn't find it that too bad at all, actually. And I flew to America, met with some great people, and then had to make my way back. And all the airport, the flight I had to deal with myself, which I had no experience of whatsoever. So if you'd said to me when I started BookTube that that's what I would be doing, I would have laughed at you and wondered either what alcohol you're drunk or what drugs you're taking, because that literally wasn't me then. If I physically couldn't have done it, just the thought of it, I would have been like, oh, it would have given me a bad stomach. I would have felt like I was going to be sick if you suggested that, because I couldn't have physically stomached it. It just would have been like, oh, no, thank you. I'll put that aside for now. Nowadays, that amazingly is not a problem, and that's the biggest help to me, because my biggest fear, and something that holds me back, has always held me back to a large degree, although considerably less now than it used to, is going to places where I don't know. Basically, the fear of the unknown travel. Fear of the unknown is a human aspect with me, specifically of unknown travel, specifically, because I'm the sort of person that I like to plan out what I could possibly do and what might happen when I do something. I sort of try to predict probabilities. That's the sort of person I am. I'm a bit obsessive about it, frankly, I'm not going to deny. When you travel, of course, you can't plan everything. And years ago, that stopped me, because that's the thought of not being able to predict what you might have to do or where you might need to go, the actual physical travel part, stopped me doing things in the first place, so I never did them. Nowadays, of course, I don't really care. The fear's still there. I'm not going to deny it. I still got that thing at the back of my mind where I'm still paranoid of travelling and something going wrong I don't entirely know how to deal with, but I can kind of switch that off to a degree, and because I know now that I've travelled to America, for instance, twice by myself, and there's not one problem. I mean, yes, obviously I was probably fairly lucky because some people do have problems with travel, even experienced travellers do, but I've had a good experience so far, and that's massively helped. I feel through that fear of the unknown, that of part of my personality, that's kind of gone away now. It's been eroded and it's still there, but it's fairly minor now. I don't consider it to be a significant part of my personality. Then, yes, that was a major part of me. I was affected by going to new places, and it really was fairly obvious with me. Nowadays, not really. It's just one of them things that happen, and you know, that's fine. And the other thing that I think that BookTube has helped with, I mean, and obviously this is also over time as well, is the fact that I feel as though I'm more eloquent with my words, and frankly, I can talk in a more, sort of a thoughtful manner and have more of a discussion than I used to. Because prior to BookTube, when I wanted to talk about a subject, I would just talk about it in any ways, and my speech and my thought patterns would be more disjointed than they are now. Nowadays, of course, I can, because of the BookTube and having to make them notes, I'm now more focused with what I say. I can now think ahead with what I say, and I feel as though my speech is a little bit more natural now, because I'm the sort of person that I try to literally predict conversation. As I've said with travel, I try to predict everything, and sometimes that has led in the past to my conversation being fairly stilted, because I'm literally trying to predict what somebody will say before I've even finished saying what I'm going to say, and it can lead to a pretty weird conversation sometimes, which, I mean, I am fairly socially awkward. I mean, I'm not going to deny that. I never used to realise or think of it in that terms, but I know I am. I don't care in the slightest. I mean, BookTube is a place for being socially awkward, I feel it anyway. So, I fit in rather well here. So, I mean, I often feel bookworms often can be somewhat socially awkward as a rule, because we get involved in books, and I think it's like a certain psychology that often can be the case. Not always, certainly not always, but often. And it's one that I certainly share, that awkwardness. And that's where I feel as though I've developed from there. So I've lost the awkwardness slightly. I'm still awkward. I mean, you can tell I'm awkward. I mean, if you met me in person, you would think, I'm definitely quiet and a little bit socially awkward. But that's why I don't literally care, and I don't think anybody else does. That fear of my own personality almost has changed as well, which is interesting. And now, finally, I will talk about the patterns and trends I've noticed on BookTube. And there aren't that actually many, really. I expect some people are hoping here for me to talk about all these interesting things I've noticed over 9 years. But I don't think there's that many, really. I mean, when I started, there was a bit of a thing around where almost every booktuber, you would almost be expected to make your own tag and try and get people to do it, which I did, by the way. And that was a bit of a thing. There's certain other videos that certain people felt as though you need to do, most of which I didn't do, for the record, because I couldn't think how to say them, simply put. And nowadays, though, I feel as though BookTube is, frankly, it's more mature, it's developed more, and people basically make videos about books in any way they want now. 9 years ago, it was, I wouldn't say formulaic, but it was more predictable with the types of videos people would do about books and the way they would speak about them. Nowadays, the variety of ways that people talk about things means there is no real pattern. People can do anything they want about books now. If you want to do traditional channels where you do book reviews and monthly wrap-ups, which is literally my channel now, my entire content, frankly, then you can. If you want to do really experimental videos and do lots of editing and visual effects, which obviously you know me by now, I barely edit my videos really, other than removing odd little gaps where I will look around at a distraction or pause for breath or cough or something. That's it. I don't really edit, but some people do like that and it works for them. So now it's very much, BookTube is more accepting now of people doing pretty much anything goes, really, as long as you show your enthusiasm for the books you're talking about, and you can actually get to the point within a reasonable time frame, which I'm going to stop this video in a minute, so to prove a point that I actually can keep to a reasonable time frame, then you'll do well on BookTube. And as far as, if anybody's like thinking like, oh, what would your advice be in case any views, I'll just say, make videos about books the way that you like watching them. And indeed this applies to me, I like watching reviews and I like watching people do wrap-ups. That's the entirety of my content now, and I'm perfectly happy doing that. So if you like watching tag videos and you love watching tags, and you can always think up answers to seeing people do tags, then do a BookTube channel where you do a lot of BookTube related tags. And obviously, a few other things thrown in as well. But that's perfectly fine. Do the videos and create the content that you enjoy watching. If you enjoy watching it, you'll enjoy making it. If you enjoy making it, people will watch, because seeing somebody be enthusiastic about whatever subject it happens to be, whether that's books or whether that's craft. I mean, a friend of mine, Rachel, comes to mind because she talks about books and she also talks about crafts. And regardless of whether she talks about crafts, which I'm not knowledgeable on, although I'm more knowledgeable than I used to be, watching her talk about craft is just as fun as talking about books, because her enthusiasm is frankly infectious. And I think that applies to everybody. If your enthusiasm is there, then the content will be good. And frankly, that's all I can say. Just do what you love and things will be a lot simpler. I mean, I'm an optimist by nature, so that is easy for me to say. And with that said, that is actually it for this video. If you have any comments on this, or if you want to know any more details about any of this over the years, then please leave a comment and we can have a talk about it. If you have any suggestions for me to make videos about, maybe especially like sort of big milestone type videos, then please leave a suggestion. So with that said, that is it for this video. All my social media links can be found in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.